specific point that you may recollect from our last discussion?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Adish Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, we discussed the verse Svacha Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Putana Pasta Vegam, Etana Vega, Vishad, Dhiran, Prithvichi. Like we discussed the urges. Sorry, I'm not able to recall the verse
No problem.
exact properly.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed the 6 urges, that is urge of speech, urge of belly, urge of genitals, and we discussed how to control these urges.
Yes. So first 3 urges we discussed, the urges of speech, Manasa, Krodha, Vegam, urge of the mind's demands, and Krodha, Vegam, urge when we become angry. And then we also discussed the resultant urges of one's tongue, belly, and the procreatory organ. Hare Krishna Dandas. So any other point? Thank you, Adish Prabhu. Any other point any devotees recollect? Thank you, Mangalam Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you. Any other point for these urges?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. If you control these urges, then you can become a spiritual master.
Yes, one becomes qualified to make disciples all over the world. And Srila Prabhupada very much in detail explained the meaning of the word Swami or Goswami. So a devotee is needed to become a Goswami and not Godasa. Yeah. Sujata Mataji, what is the meaning of Goswami? Srila Prabhupada explained.
Goswami is master of senses.
Master of the senses. Yes. And only at this qualification can one make disciples all over the world. So there was a last activity pending from previous session, which was the group discussion activity. Not this. One second. I'll go to the directly last slide. Yes. Yes. So based on these 6 urges that we learned, discussed in the last session, we see Srila Prabhupada in the purport offering a workaround solution by giving positive engagement to our senses in Krishna consciousness. So if we can, okay, let's have this as the classroom discussion instead of a group, instead of a breakout room discussion. In the interest of time, and we will have breakout room discussion as part of the session 2 today. But for this revision front, as the classroom discussion, can we think of any inappropriate means of sense control? And while we discuss these examples, we will be very, very careful to not quote or name any specific group or organization, because that is not our goal. But for us to learn the lesson, which are some of the artificial means that are employed by certain groups to engage to control the senses, for the sense control, and what are the Krishna conscious workaround means that we can instead take to control these urges. So maybe we cover these urges one by one, and you need not cover all, but whichever one of the urges you can cover, what is the inappropriate means and what is a Krishna conscious workaround. So any devotees would like to volunteer to share any thoughts? You can maybe take a minute to think, to structure your thoughts, and then raise your hand. Hare Krishna Murli Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji. Okay, so Murli Prabhu has given a very unorthodox example. He mentions to control the urges. Murli Prabhu, if possible, would you like to unmute yourself to explain this example? You
Not
have,
really, Prabhuji. Not really,
okay,
because as I mentioned, the
you have
situation.
the background. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, Prabhuji. So Murli Prabhu has mentioned using drugs and intoxicants. So I am not sure how Prabhuji means, but do you mean by indulging our senses so much in the gratifying them that they become completely uh, filled by the sense gratification and they no more have desires for sense gratification, as is the concept used by some of the organizations
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, in this case, you know that in some organizations,
Mhm.
they propose that some so-called sadhus, they go about having inappropriate substances in the name of the Lord. Okay, that is what I mean.
Thank you, Broj. Yes, and with regard to this, the scriptures give the example, just like any amount of fuel that we add to the fire can never have its appetite full. In turn, the fire will start burning more vigorously. Similarly, if we engage our senses in gratifying them, then the urges of the senses will not subside, but they will continue to grow more and more. So maybe we will take some of the devotees written on the chat. So Guru Nishtha Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, one thing I can think of is some people try to control the senses artificially by silence. But
Right.
we in Krishna consciousness, we do the opposite. We use speech to engage our senses in Krishna, like chanting, Sankirtan. For us, that focuses our mind. It's not because mind cannot be controlled, but it can be directed in the proper direction through Sankirtan or chanting or reading, whatever.
Yes, Mataji. Very nice point. In fact, Srila Prabhupada mentions this also as part of his classes. He gives the example of the Mauna Vrata. Mauna means to stay silent and to not speak. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that, but this is not the positive engagement for the sense of speech. Why? Because even if one is trying to control the tongue by holding the Mauna Vrata, the thoughts and desires will build up, and once they build up, it is only a matter of time when they convert into action. So instead of this, the positive engagement for the sense of speech tongue would be to engage it in glorifying Krishna, in chanting Krishna Kirtan. Yes, this is one. We also have few Shama Gopika Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Am I audible?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. Prabhuji, like in Bhagavad Gita also, like there is a verse wherein Krishna says that you cannot, we cannot keep our senses idle even for a minute. And like Srila Prabhupada says that, like we should not take renunciation when we are not ready yet, right? So some people like they in some organizations they say that you have to leave everything, you have to leave the family, you have to leave, don't need not do your prescribed duties, and then when we are not ready we cannot take renunciation. So it is an artificial renunciation, what Prabhupada calls it like falgu vairagya. Yeah.
In fact, as the coincidence would have it, like just yesterday we discussed that verse in the temple class about 8.7 about not renouncing any activities, but mam anusmara yudhyacha, by remembering Krishna to constantly engage in one's activities. Yes, so renunciation of the activities at the premature stage is not at all recommended. Even if we see examples of some of our acharyas, like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in the very fag and last days of his life, he entered into Nirjana Bhajana in Jagannath Puri. But that was at a very fag end, and plus at the level of his advancement in Krishna consciousness. But the most part of his life, he led a very active life of a preacher by holding the Bhakti Vrakshas and the Namahatta programs and preaching all over along with his busy schedule and responsibilities as a government magistrate. So we cannot withdraw the senses, withdraw from their activities. We have to engage them in Krishna's service. Thank you, Shama Gopika Mataji. We also have few comments here on the chat. Arina Mataji mentioned Hare Krishna, Vani Kumari Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
14.11 sloka Bhagavad Gita. 14.11 sloka also example for this sloka, Prabhuji.
14:11. 1 second.
14.11
Okay.
Bhagavad Gita.
You can read the translation.
I have Telugu, Prabhuji.
No, okay. Hang on. Okay. So,
Sloka I read.
Sarva Dwareshu Dehesmin Prakasha Upajayate Jnanam Yada Tada Vidya Vivruddham Sattvam Iti Uta. The manifestation of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. Yes. So when we engage our senses in the service of the Lord, then it is mentioned that the symptoms of the mode of goodness is all the various gates of the body, they are illuminated with knowledge. If we hear things in the right position, if we test things in the right position, then one is cleansed inside and outside. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Adish Prabhu.
Yeah, and regarding renunciation, it reminds me of a verse from NOD 1.2.255. Anasaktasya Vishaya Yataram Upayujyate Nirbandhe Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagya Muchyate. That when we see everything in connection to Krishna, then we are rightly situated.
Yes, and that vairagya is that renunciation is the true renunciation. When we engage everything in relationship to Krishna. Thank you, Adish Prabhu, Vani Kumari Mataji. Reena Mataji has mentioned on the chat, concentrating one's attention, focus on the tip of the nose, concentrate on the light or meditation, or even charitable work. Yes. So this type of meditation is also employed by engaged by one of the very famous spiritual organization in India, who teach their followers to meditate by lighting a candle in a dark room and trying to focus their mind on it for a long time. But we see that in spite of this, the followers, not sometimes as a matter of routine, also engage their senses in breaking the regulative principles. So this does not help in real sense control. So maybe we'll have one or two last inputs. Vilas Prabhu has mentioned, instead of austerity of Mauna, we can use the speech for spreading Krishna consciousness. Yes, very true. And even is Rajiv Sundur Prabhuji, would you like to share anything, any thoughts?
Yes.
Prabhuji, your voice is a bit weak.
Hello?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Tapasya is one thing due to which we can have austerity such as celibacy, controlling the mind, called sama or dama, controlling the senses. These are the things which we can able to control the senses and concentrate on Krishna consciousness.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank
you. Means of sense control where people engage themselves in meditation, yoga, then hatha yoga, where they stop eating the things, where they go to they completely avoid the things and go to certain remote places where they can avoid the sense objects through which there will be desires to have those sense objects. So these are the things, temporarily they do it, but even doing all these things, continuously the mind cannot be engaged in Krishna consciousness. So these are some of the unappropriate means which are very prominent present practice. But in the long range, if you want to go for Krishna consciousness, then we need to engage our senses in the Krishna consciousness activities.
Yes, Prabhuji. So you mentioned two very important points. One point you mentioned is by trying to go to a place of seclusion to engage in the austerities. And we see similar austerities were also performed by great demoniac personalities like Hiranyakashipu. But the result was that once that austerity was over, just like a spring, all the senses he engaged fully in gratifying, to the extent not only the gross senses, but even most importantly, the subtle senses, in terms of his satisfying his ego to establish supremacy all over the material world. And
Yes.
second point you mentioned is by the proper engagement through the austerities like fasting, for example. And if we see at various sections in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada time and again mentions only few austerities for the people of Kali Yuga. They mean fasting on special days like Ekadashi, and appearance and disappearance days of various Vaishnav Acharyas, and appearance days of various incarnations. So this is also a very effective mean to control one's senses, and it is really, really helpful. Thank you, Rajiv Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhuji, I have one question.
Mhm.
Going through this Parikshit Maharaj, who was the methods of purification suggested by Sukadev Goswami
Mhm.
were rejected by Parikshit Maharaj. So, in that case, whatever I have gone through the details, but I was not clear on which are the two purifications suggested by Sukadev Goswami, which Parikshit Maharaj rejected it.
Yeah, so basically we saw in our this, I believe in this slide itself, the concept of prayashchitta, atonement, was recommended at the beginning of the 6th chapter by Shukadev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, as the first means, and which Parikshit Maharaj rejected by giving the example of an elephant, that an elephant bathes in a river, but again after bathing and getting its body clean, rolls out on the river bank and pours the sand all over his body, so the bathing is of no use. Similarly, the person committing atonement, again the mentality for committing sinful activities is not removed.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. All right, so maybe we will take one last devotee's input on this before we proceed. Priyadarshini Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I felt artificial means of sense control, whatever they are, should be avoided.
Yes, Mataji, thank you.
Thank you.
Because these artificial means, these have been tried and tested by various demons, and they just act as a suppressing one's desires, and as soon as the facility is there for sense enjoyment, it really comes back like a spring. And we see in the lives of so many personalities, and these are all great souls, so we should not minimize their importance by any means, but for our own learning, we can learn that how artificial means of sense control can really react very, very strongly as soon as there is a facility for gratification. Mangala Mataji, you wanted to share anything on this? I see you have unmuted. If not, then we will. Okay, Mataji. All right. So if there is no other question, comment by any devotees, we proceed to our today's discussion, which is discussing text 2 and 3 of Upadeshamrit. 1 second. Yes. So today we are going to discuss about 6 aspects, 6 activities of devotional service, which are very conducive, which are very favorable for the conduct of one's devotional service, and 6 unfavorable activities, which if one is not careful, they can spoil. The word that is used by Srila Rupa Goswami's Vinashyati. Although we say that bhakti can never be destroyed, but Srila Prabhupada uses the translation of this word Vinashyati as to mean it can spoil one's devotional service, spoil or disrupt. So delaying of perfection in one's devotional service can occur if we are not careful. So let's go through the verses first. Hare Krishna. So as part of today's discussion, in addition to seeing the 6 favorable, 6 unfavorable activities, we will see the practical application of these principles, how to apply them in our day-to-day lives, and Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission in applying some of these principles to suit the time, place, and circumstances in preaching mission. So how he needed to adjust some of these principles in order to propagate Krishna consciousness. So let's proceed. Any devotee would like to chant in proper meter these verses?
May I, Prabhu?
Yes,
May I?
dear Shri Mataji. Yes,
Hare
ma'am.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Atyaharah prayaschascha prajalpo niyamagrahah janasangascha laulyam cha shadbir bhaktir vinashyati. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
You can read out the translation also from
Yes,
the...
Prabhuji. Yeah. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities: eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required, endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, and lastly, being greedy for mundane achievements. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. So these 6 activities which are very unfavorable and which can spoil, of course, devotional service cannot be destroyed, but our progress can definitely be obstructed if we are not careful. Atyahara, eating or accumulating more than required. Prayasascha, endeavoring very hard for material objectives which are very difficult to achieve. Prajalpa, which is the talks, idle talks. Prajalpa, niyamagraha, following rules and regulation without understanding essence. Jana Sangha means avoiding the association of the worldly minded people, and Laulyam, being too greedy for the material achievements. These are very, very dangerous. So we'll discuss one by one more in detail, but first we cover the next verse as well. Any devotee would like to chant the next verse?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. May I?
Namita Mataji. Yes, Mataji. Please go ahead.
Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Utsaha nischaya dhairya tat karma pravartanat sangatyagat sato vrittehe shadbir bhakti prasidhyati. Hare Krishna.
You can read out the translation also, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. So there are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. First one, being enthusiastic. Second, endeavoring with confidence. Third one, being patient. Fourth, acting according to the regulative principles such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. Fifth one, abandoning the association of non-devotees. Sixth one, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of pure devotional service. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. So first one, and Srila Prabhupada has given maximum space and importance to covering this, is Atyahara Prayasascha, which doesn't just mean eating more than required, but Srila Prabhupada has given commentary from his own spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, from the Anuvratti commentary of his, to explain what do these terms mean. So maybe first we will read these quotes by our founder Acharya, and then we can discuss through them. Any devotee would like to read these quotes by Srila Prabhupada? Valar Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Atyahara and prayasas. Collecting and eating more than necessary also causes prayasa or unnecessary endeavor. By God's arrangement, anyone in any part of the world can live very peacefully if he has some land and a milk cow. There is no need for man to move from one place to another to earn a livelihood, for one can produce food, grains locally and get milk from cows. That can solve all economic problems. NOI, page 20. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you, madam. So please don't misunderstand this particular point to mean that are we driving the society towards a primitive lifestyle? In fact, Srila Prabhupada answers this exact statement in his subsequent part of the purport. The answer is no. We are not saying that now that we have come to this age where the modern economic centers, if you see the 4 Asian lands that we call, these places are so advanced materially, so it is not really possible to go to the civilization of doing the farming and maintaining the society based on the farming and the cow protection itself. That is definitely possible, but it may not be practical to reverse the modern civilization to that extent in one go. So definitely that is not the purpose the Srila Prabhupada is guiding us. But what he's saying is that we don't have to really work that hard to collect in by so many austere means that one doesn't have even time to properly have food or even have proper night's sleep. In fact, in one of the classes, Srila Prabhupada mentions that the real opulence in Kali Yuga is that one is able to get hot, proper, fresh food at right time and have at least 5 to 6 hours of peaceful sleep. Because many of the modern men and women that we see, they are working so hard that even these basic necessities of the bodies, they are not able to afford. So all this endeavor to collect more and more is what is not being appreciated by Srila Prabhupada and our predecessor Acharyas. And we will see some of the qualifications, sorry, not qualifications, some of the classifications Srila Prabhupada makes of the mankind to categorize them into different categories, and then explains from the point of view of devotees which particular categorization is most conducive for devotional service, which particular category one should try to be in. Okay, so we'll discuss these points from this particular point that Srila Prabhupada has.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
6.17 Prabhuji. Yuktahara Vihara.
Yes, yeah. Yes, Mataji. Krishna, what does Krishna mention? Everything should be regulated, including our eating, our sleeping, as well as one's procreation. Yukta ahara and vihara. So even the method of one's procreation should be recreation, sorry, not procreation. Recreation should be properly regulated. One should be regulated, and only such a person is qualified to be a yogi, one who is regulated in one's habits. And this is a bit long of a purport. This is taken from one conversation of Srila Prabhupada. So just to keep it short, I would read a part of it. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that there are 4 classes of people. Srila Prabhupada mentions in German, I think, or somewhere there is a classification: lazy intelligent, busy intelligent, lazy full, and busy full. So at the present moment, the whole world is full of busy fools. So what do these 4 classifications of people mean? It means that busy fool means the person who is ignorant about the goal of one's life. And busy means in his activities, he is very, very busy. He is actively engaged in doing activities, although he doesn't know where the life should be led to. So these categorization of the people are called as busy fools. And according to Srila Prabhupada, they are the most dangerous. Why? Because first, they don't know what should be done, what should not be done. And on the other hand, they are engaged in activities without knowing the goal. And Srila Prabhupada compares them with the monkeys. So it's like if we have an operation theater or a room with lot of tools and the sharp tools and objects, and if a monkey is let in, then he can literally create havoc because he doesn't know how to use those sharp objects for the purpose they are meant to be, and he can cause lot of harm to the people around. Similarly, little less dangerous than the busy fools are the people who are lazy fools. That means although the person is unaware, he is totally ignorant about the goal of life, he is still not hyperactive. He is still bit calm in his approach. So he is not causing as much of a harm. Srila Prabhupada uses the word harm. If you read fifth line from the bottom, lazy fool is better than the busy fool because he will not create so much harm. But this busy fool will simply create harm. So lazy fools are still, less harmful compared to the busy fools. Then the third, you can say less harmful, or the second best class of people is the busy intelligent. That means they know the goal of life, but the thing is they are so much busy that sometimes they don't have probably enough time for pursuing Krishna conscious interest. And the best amongst all these classes of people, Srila Prabhupada mentions, are the lazy intelligent. That means these are the personalities who know the goal of life, what is most important to pursue in one's life, but they are lazy in terms of not so much chasing the material goals. So maybe we'll read the first two lines to understand what does this lazy mean. So we have to understand it in proper context. Laziness means minimizing the bodily labor and engage in spiritual work. If you ask people, please come to our temple, who is coming? Because he says, I have no time, but we are not working hard. So real aim of life is to, and then Srila Prabhupada concludes. So the point is, lazy intelligent means the person is aware about the goal of life and he is very, very busy and active as far as spiritual pursuits are concerned. But as far as material pursuits are concerned, he is simply happy with what is bare minimum required for the maintenance. He is not too, he knows that the time we have in hand is limited. If I spend 16-18 hours of the day in material pursuit, then obviously I won't be left with enough time even to follow the basic spiritual activities of chanting, etc. So that person is considered lazy from the material point of view and intelligent from the spiritual point of view. So is there any question from the devotees or any comments from the devotees on this classification? Are we clear what do these four classes of people stand for and who is the best and who is the worst?
Prabhuji, calling the spiritually, I feel, Prabhuji, I'm sorry if I'm wrong, calling the spiritually inclined person lazy, I felt a little bit unfair.
Yeah. So lazy word as such has a negative connotation in our normal day-to-day word usage. Definitely agree. But in this particular context, what Srila Prabhupada is mentioning is, we have to see from how Srila Prabhupada is giving the meaning. Lazy from the point of view of minimizing the bodily necessities. That is from the material fulfillment point of view. But spiritual engagement, devotees doubly active. As we can see from the lives of devotees, Priyadarshini Mataji, Srila Prabhupada himself, how much sleep he used to avail? Hardly 2 hours. So it is not that he was lazy. He was very, very, in fact, he was more active than, even the youngsters of his time, as well as youngsters now, who won't be able to serve Krishna that much in a busy schedule. But Srila Prabhupada, as far as the material pursuits were concerned, we can see examples like this morning we were discussing Srila Prabhupada by profession, he had a pharmacy business during his household days, and not one time or two times, total 6 number of times there were failures in his business, one after another. Sometimes the employees, they ran away with huge sums of money. Sometimes there were irregularities by his employees in the conduct of the business, which brought Srila Prabhupada into a lot of difficulty. His name at that time was Abhay Charan Dey. But what does lazy mean? Lazy doesn't mean he relinquished his responsibility. He tried time and again, but as far as accepting the will of Lord Krishna was concerned, Srila Prabhupada was totally dependent on the Lord. So lazy means from the material point of view, not getting frustrated or not overly trying to make material things work, but trying to understand Krishna's hand. Okay, that is the meaning of lazy. But as far as spiritual activities is concerned, devotee is doubly busy. He is not lazy in spiritual pursuits.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So maybe we will have one devotee read through this and then we have the classroom discussion. Indira Mataji and Jayvant Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Unfortunately, people accept religion for material prosperity because of atyahara or an excessive desire for such prosperity. True religion, however, instructs people to be satisfied with the bare necessities of life while cultivating Krishna consciousness. Even though we require economic development, true religion allows it only for supplying the bare necessities of material existence. Jivasya tattva jijnasa. The real purpose of life is to inquire about the absolute truth. If our endeavor, prayasa, is not to inquire about the absolute truth, we will simply increase our endeavor to satisfy our artificial needs. A spiritual aspirant should avoid mundane endeavor. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Indira Mataji. So here Srila Prabhupada is explaining how an intelligent devotee, he should be very careful about this, not using the religious principles for material prosperity. Otherwise, one will be totally miss the goal and the life will be spent just like that. But he should be happy in allowing only the bare necessities of life. And what is bare necessities? It can differ person to person slightly, but the principle remains the same. And where he should really focus his energy on jivasya tattva jigyasa, knowing that the real purpose of life is to inquire about the absolute truth. Now, based on this particular concept of being a lazy intelligent or lazy about the material pursuits, but very active, very focused about the spiritual pursuits, can we think of any contemporary examples from world around us of lazy intelligent people? Can anyone think of? Maybe you can take a minute to think and then we can discuss the example. You can raise your hand. We will go one by one. And again, these are positive examples and only discuss the examples which are in public knowledge. Okay, because we don't want to discuss about personal life of any devotees whose express permission we may not have to discuss. So maybe you can take a minute to think and then raise your hand to explain any example that you can see around of people who fall in this category. Anyone? Is the question clear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Adish Prabhu, can you think of any example?
Prabhuji, if you permit, I would like to quote the example of H.G. Aidadas, Prabhuji.
Indra Prabhu, yes, Prabhuji.
We
Yes.
started the 24-hour Kirtan.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Like,
So Indra Prabhu, so his contribution to the ISKCON community in terms of restarting the 24-hour Kirtan in Krishna Balaram temple is definitely amazing. In fact, he came all the way from the west, living a very life of comfort and opulence, and settled in a humble place like Vrindavan for this service. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, any other background?
Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you, Indra Prabhu. Sorry, Adish Prabhu. Hare Krishna. We had one more devotee raise her hand. Sujata Mataji, you wanted to share something? Was it you who had unmuted?
I didn't understand what is this lazy intelligent people, Prabhuji, you are asking.
So lazy intelligent means they are happy and satisfied by using their talent to meet the minimum necessities of life, to maintain their food, clothing, shelter, to maintain themselves. But as far as the spiritual pursuits are concerned, they know where one should focus one's energy, and they are very, very active in pursuing that goal. Okay, so
sorry, Prabhu, just sorry,
yes,
Prabhu, go ahead.
yes, Radhika Mataji, go ahead.
So just trying to understand this particular one. So you mean say somebody like Madhavendra Puri will come under this category where he is very lazy to take care of himself even for food, or Sukadev, whereas spiritually they are all 365-degree willing to work. Would that be the kind of category you're trying to explain, Prabhu? Sorry, I'm finding it difficult.
Definitely, yes, Mataji. So from the Shastric point of view, the example you mentioned is very true and relevant. Srila Madhavendra Puri, it is mentioned that when he was performing, basically when he was chanting near the Govinda Kunda around Govardhan, he was hungry for 3 days. So a devotee is, he is not bothered how the body will be maintained, and then Lord Krishna comes in the form of a coward boy to hand him over the pot of milk. But when it comes to serving Krishna, even at the advanced age of 80, 90 years plus, he immediately set out from Vrindavan to Jagannath Puri, the Neelachal hills, to fetch Chandan. Yes, Radhika Mataji. Any example you can think of, Radhika Mataji, from our contemporary world? We have one example very close to us. All of
Namanishtadas Prabhuji.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Priyadarshini Mataji. So Prabhupada example also we will go through, but His Grace Namanishta Prabhu, if you see Prabhuji's background, Prabhuji is a graduate from IIT Kanpur in the computer science and engineering. So definitely, if he would have wanted to pursue, Prabhuji was working in an organization, Infosys, in early 90s. Definitely minimum, I can tell you, because I have been part of Infosys in early 2000, he would have been minimum at a position of a top 10 or 15 of the management by this point. Okay, if Prabhuji would have really wanted to pursue. But imagine giving up such lucrative career, having passed out of such Ivy League college or university in India. He devoted his own life not only to preach and practice Krishna consciousness, but to build ISKCON Mangalore, the new temple that is coming out. I don't know how many of you have heard, but the initial seed funding Prabhuji obtained by the saving which his father had deposited in the bank for his upkeeping, that as a last resort in case Prabhuji, sometimes there are any contingencies and Prabhuji needs to support himself, then his father had deposited some fund in the bank, and Prabhuji utilized all that deposit as a seed fund to procure the land from the government without even having clarity how is he going to repay the rest of the amount, which was huge. So he paid that total Lakshmi, which his father had saved for him, as a 10% of the funding to acquire the land for the temple, and depending totally on Krishna to accumulate the remaining 90% to secure the land. And by Krishna's grace, that amount was accumulated over the next few months, and Prabhu could close the lease deal and have the land in ISKCON's name. And now he is working doubly hard to build a beautiful temple for Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji, and also to have a community where all of us can enthusiastically practice Krishna consciousness, and systematic education program for ISKCON courses. So that is the vision. So we see that as far as material pursuits are concerned, he would have been literally, not to exaggerate, would have been a millionaire in dollar terms if he would have pursued the career. But he gave up all that, and he is very active as far as pursuing the path of Krishna consciousness, propagating Krishna consciousness is concerned. So this is a live and contemporary living example around us of person who, from the material pursuits, he is happy and satisfied whatever bare minimum Krishna afforded, but very active as far as the spiritual pursuits are concerned. Thank you, Priyadarshini Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So maybe we'll take one last example. P.S. Murthy Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, one of the more contemporary examples, like Namaste Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
I don't remember his name, the Indian name, but Henry Ford's son, who
Yes.
had come back to India, and he was very successful, very wealthy, very well placed, and he left everything, moved everything to whatever was in his name to ISKCON, came to Mayapur, he's in Mayapur,
Yes.
married an Indian, he settled there. He
The-
devoted his life to Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. The great grandson of Henry Ford, Amrish Prabhu, whose name is Alfred Ford. So Prabhuji is also a living contemporary example around us of how being born with a silver spoon in his mouth, being born in such an opulent aristocratic family, if he would have wanted, he could have really enjoyed the material opulence to the fullest. But he took personally Srila Prabhupada's instruction that was given to him to build a very nice opulent temple for Lord Krishna in Mayapur, and where he is not just engaging his own personal means in terms of the Lakshmi that is needed to build the temple, but actively driving contribution of so many devotees and well-wishers around the world to make this temple happen. And just to mention in brief, maybe less than a minute, the significance of this contribution for Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada mentioned that various acharyas in Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya have got their own contributions to the Gaudiya Vaishnava mission to propagate Lord Chaitanya's mission. Like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he established Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birthplace. What is the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birthplace in Mayapur? What is that place called? Aishwarya Subhadra Mataji, you recollect?
Navadipa. Yogapit.
Yogapit. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yogapit, that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur established, firstly found out that place, established a very beautiful temple of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the contribution to the Vaishnava mission. Then his son, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, established the headquarters of the Gaudiya Math, the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math in Mayapur. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned that was his contribution to the Gaudiya mission. And then Srila Prabhupada mentioned that this particular temple of Vedic Planetarium, he would like that as his own personal contribution to the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and this temple has been envisaged by none other than Srila Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So that will be a great contribution to the overall mission. That is the mood of Srila Prabhupada. And Alfred Ford, sorry, what is Prabhuji's name? I just mentioned.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Amrish Prabhu. Amrish Prabhuji. He is helping overall community of devotees fulfill this mission. So both these glaring examples we saw, one is of Namanishta Prabhu and Amrish Prabhu, how a devotee, as far as his own comfort is concerned, he is satisfied with bare minimum. But as far as Krishna's comfort is concerned, he goes extra mile. He doesn't leave anything.
Gopal is Prabhuji also CEO of Coca-Cola company, Prabhuji. He is also the Shishya of Prabhupada.
Sorry, what is the specific name? Can you repeat the name?
Gopal Krishna.
Yes. His holiness Gopala Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Yes, so Maharaj is also very qualified from Ivy League University in US. He was working in one of the very famous MNCs, and we won't like to go into the details of the MNCs, but he was very, very well.
Coca-Cola company CEO.
Yeah, we don't want to discuss the name specific. The session is getting recorded.
Okay, sorry, sorry.
So Gopal Krishna Maharaj, although well established in his own material life, but as far as pleasing, contributing and pleasing spiritual master is concerned, he was so determined that it is mentioned that every time he used to come to visit Srila Prabhupada, he used to come with one newly published book. And Srila Prabhupada was so fond of Gopal Krishna Maharaj's this mood of surrender and service to him. And subsequently, even in his responsibilities as the leading sannyasi within the movement, Maharaj has been instrumental in building so many gorgeous temples in various parts of Delhi as well as India, remaining rest of the India. So we would now proceed. Okay, yeah, and there are so many other examples like Srila Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami that Santosh Prabhu has quoted, and all the various Maharajas, sannyasis, and leading devotees in our movement. So this concept of being a lazy intelligent is clear to all the devotees, that don't consider lazy as the regular meaning of the word lazy. It is in this particular context that Srila Prabhupada is teaching us.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, it can be the opposite of Ugra Karma.
Yes, Ugra Karma is basically the busy fool, and what we discussed, the activities of a devotees are the lazy intelligent. Hare Krishna. So we proceed. Okay, and example, what is the result of this Atyahara and Prayasascha? So there is a wonderful story of one of the disciples of Narada Muni, Kailash. So I have not put much detail because it will become too wordy, but you can hear and maybe search also on this later. So this one particular household man, Kailash, Narad Muni used to visit him and try to guide him on the spiritual path. But he was so attached to his family and home and family members that he was, although the age was advancing, he was not willing to retire from his family responsibilities and take up Krishna consciousness full-fledgedly, despite Narad Muni's advice. And one time, when Narad Muni visits this home of Kailash, he finds that Kailash is not there anymore. And when he inquires, he comes to know that Kailash has already left his body. And Narad Muni feels very sad that, look, I was trying to convince him to retire from his family responsibilities and give himself to Krishna's service in the advanced days of his life, but he kept delaying it, and now he's no more. Even the human body is gone. And then a dog comes barking near the home, and Narad Muni, by his spiritual vision, understands that this Kailash, because of his not devoting himself properly to Krishna and sinful activities and his attachment to to his home and family, now he has got a lower form of body, that of a dog. But because of his attachment to the home, he has taken the birth as a dog near to his house and is still trying to guard the house to protect the property. And Narad Muni is very sorrow seeing the degradation of this devotee, this person, and tries to explain to him that, look, I told you when you had human form of life to take up to Krishna consciousness properly. What has happened now? And next time when Narad Muni visits, even the dog is no more there. The dog has died. And then Narad Muni sees a serpent guarding the field of this Kailash. And that serpent is nothing but the Kailash himself, who has degraded from the body of a dog into a body of a serpent. And Narad Muni totally laments the position of Kailash, saying that because of you not giving your attachment, you have degraded from body of a human being to a dog and from dog to a serpent. So at least now you give up this attachment. He says that my children are so foolish that whatever property I built for them with great endeavor, they are not even intelligent to protect it properly. So I am protecting the field so that nobody would encroach upon it. And then Narad Muni understands that there is no point of any good counsel that can be given to this serpent Kailash. And then he calls the people of the village, come here is a snake and serpent. And Kailash is aghast, and people throw stone and kill the serpent, and by the mercy of Narad Muni, that serpent, the soul, it gets elevated finally, and it gets liberated from the body of a serpent for a higher destination. So we see the example of the worldly attachment of Atyahara and Prayasascha working too hard for the material goals is that one's attachment increases more and more, and one degrades himself. If one is not careful, one would even go further down the 8.4 million species of life if we don't give it up and surrender to Krishna for a higher goal. Then next is Atyahara Prayasascha Prajalpa. So what is Prajalpa? Prajalpa means the idle talk, and Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, it is demonstrated through normal worldly people's interest in newspapers, magazines, novels, and in the modern day and age, you can call it social media as well. Of course, one can obviously try to justify any of these modes of communication by saying how we are also able to use it in spreading Krishna consciousness, which is definitely true, but one has to be very careful that we indulge in this only for the purpose of service, that too after practicing our minimum daily practice of Krishna consciousness, including chanting of the whatever quota of rounds that we are chanting if we are initiated. 16, following the temple program, reading, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Srila Prabhupada's, reading from Prabhupada books, hearing from Srila Prabhupada and various of our other acharyas in our movement. Otherwise, all this prajalpa, the comparison is given, the example is given in the scriptures. Anybody recollects the example which Srila Prabhupada gives for prajalpa? If one is not careful, what would happen from idle talk?
Prabhuji, like a frog attracts a snake.
Yes, like a toad or a frog, by its croaking sound, all it simply does, the frog may think that it is singing very nicely, it is making a very beautiful melodious sound, but all it does is it attracts a snake. Snake comes to know where is the frog by the croaking sound of the frog, and then captures the frog and eats it. So similarly, if we are not careful about indulging in all these social media overdoses and all, then it will completely sweep away one's desire to engage in Lord Krishna's service. So already we are illusioned being in this body, thinking this world to be our place, this family to be our permanent associate, and our body to be self. And these social media and other prajalpa, it helps us make that illusion more and more firm. So it completely basically takes a person away from reality if one is not careful. So this is prajalpa. Feel free to raise your hand if you have any points to share on this. This is very important. Prajalpa is quite okay to understand, but this is the important concept of niyama agraha. And Srila Prabhupada, yes, Shama Gopika Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Regarding this prajalpa, there is one verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1:5-10. Yeah, it says that those words which do not describe the glories of Lord are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you. 1:5-10. Thank you, Shama Gopika Mataji, for sharing this. So coming to Niyama Graha, Srila Prabhupada explains it in two ways. One is Niyama Agraha. Niyama Agraha means accepting the rules and regulations for any immediate gains, for any immediate benefit. And second meaning of Niyama Agraha, Srila Prabhupada mentions, is the combination of the two words Niyama and Agraha, not Agraha, but this also combined forms Niyama Agraha. So this is second meaning is by neglecting the rules and regulations from the authorized scriptures and following the methods, procedures as per one's own whims and intelligence. So this is another meaning of Niyamagraha, which means one meaning, we should not accept the rules just for the sake of it, for the immediate benefit. Second is, we should not neglect the rules and regulations given in the authorized scriptures and follow one's own whims. Both are not recommended. Anybody would like to read this particular part? Gita Pradeep Kumar Mataji, Hare Krishna. Gita Mataji, please unmute yourself.
Niyamagraha, accepting some of the scriptural rules and regulations for immediate benefit, as utilitarians advocate, is called Niyama Agraha. And neglecting the rules and regulations of the Shastras, which are meant for spiritual development is called niyama agraha. The word agraha means eagerness to accept, and agraha means failure to accept. By the addition of either of these two words to the word niyama, rules and regulations, the word niyama agraha is formed. Thus, niyama agraha has a twofold meaning that is understood according to the particular combination of words.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. So this is again taken from Srila Prabhupada's commentary on text 3 of Upadeshamrut. Sorry, not text 3, we are still on text 2. Okay. So let's see some of the practical examples of this. First, let's see the example of niyama agraha, which means accepting the rules and regulations just for the sake of it. Can any devotee think of any example? Maybe we'll take just one example in the interest of time of any rules and regulation which was accepted just for the immediate benefit and it was misused by the class of people. Anyone?
Prabhuji, the animal sacrifice.
Yes. In fact, as the Paramatma would inspire, even I was thinking of the same thing. Lord Buddha's reason of Lord Buddha's appearance. The Smartha Brahmanas using the animal sacrifices recommended in the scriptures just to satisfy one's own tongue. So this was the example of a niyama agraha. That means the scriptural regulation is mentioned as a concession for people to regulate their sense gratification. Just like example is given, a government is granting license to a permit room doesn't mean that government wants each and every citizen to go and consume the liquor. That is mentioned as a regulation that if at all you are not able to control that habit, then at least go to a permitted place to consume it. Don't consume it on the road and public places. Similarly, that concession was given for a particular purpose, which was misused, and Lord Krishna had to appear as Lord Buddha. On the other hand, niyama agraha, which means neglecting the proper rules and regulations which are required to be followed. Any example we can think of?
3.13 Prabhuji.
You can just quote the example, Vani Kumari Mataji.
Yagnasistasinas santu mutyante sarvakilvishaihi bhunjate te tvagam papa ye patyantyatma karana.
Yeah. So example, I believe what you would be pointing to. Yeah, it's what we discussed in the earlier verse, that even when we are offering food to Lord Krishna and the various deities, if we are not careful about cooking and offering food in a proper mood, sattvika food, and for Lord Krishna's enjoyment, if we offer a very opulent, extravagant food, then we will have problem with the sense control. So this is neglecting the scriptural injunctions. This is also very dangerous. But thank you, Vani Kumari Mataji. What is Srila Prabhupada's mood in engaging all of us in following the rules and regulations? So maybe we'll just have one devotee read through this and explain. Rohini Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Niyamagraha, Sri Prabhupada's mood. Expert religious know perfectly well how to adjust religious principles in terms of time and place. All the great acharyas or religious teachers or reformers of the world executed their mission by adjustment of religious principles in terms of time and place. There are different climates and situations in different parts of the world, and if one has to discharge his duties to preach the message of the Lord, he must be expert in adjusting things in terms of the time and place. SP 1.99 per word. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohini. So what is the image we see on the right? Rohini Mataji. What is this image? Srila Prabhupada conducting?
Initiation, Prabhuji?
It's marriage ceremony. Okay, we see couples, husband, wife. So what is the relevance of this photo in regard to this principle? Ideally, if we see from the rules and regulation point of view, a sannyasi is not even supposed to participate in the marriage functions. Why? Because it's a renounced order of life. One has given up the other orders of like maybe as a householder, and one has to be very careful to not expose oneself to these functions so as to again feel the attraction for these other ashrams. So that is the whole purpose. But we see the place and time, place and circumstances during Srila Prabhupada's time was such that if he would not have conducted these marriage sacrifices, the boys and girls would have stayed even without marriage, which is not as per the dharmic principles. So Srila Prabhupada personally needed to teach his disciples how to properly lead the household life as a what is the terminology we use? Grahastha, right? As a grahastha, as a married couple in Krishna consciousness. So he needed to personally take charge of teaching them, which also means employing the rules and regulation based on time, place, and circumstances. Similarly, we see so many other aspects, like in the traditional Vedic civilization, women, they were not given Brahmana initiation, but Srila Prabhupada even had Brahmana initiation given to the lady disciples of his. So that was also a revolutionary. So that is the meaning of Acharya, that he knows perfectly well how to apply these rules and regulations from the scriptures based on time, place, and circumstances to propagate Krishna consciousness. So this is the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada. Any devotees?
Prabhuji, and also he permitted the Matajis to do Pujari service.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. And there are so many aspects, like, as a sannyasi, he crossed the ocean, which was again not the practice allowed as per rules and regulation. So all these rules are given with a good intention to protect the sannyasa dharma of a renunciate. But Srila Prabhupada needed to use these means in a proper way, and which was definitely taking risk, but he took risk to preach Krishna consciousness, not for one's own gratification. Santosh Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Danda Pranam to all. One example just comes to my mind is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaging in Sankirtan things. When those days sannyasis, they're all expected to study the scriptures and Vedantas. So everybody were criticizing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for this. But still Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that his spiritual master said him to continue to do the Sankirtan. So this one thing which came to my mind.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So this Sankirtan was exactly not contrary to the scriptural injunctions, but yes, it was contrary to the social custom, which was prevalent at that point in time, where the sannyasis, they were more or less engaged in Vedanta studies. Thank you, Prabhuji. So the next is Prajalpa. We saw Prajalpa Niyama Graha. I hope we are not going too fast. Okay, let me know if you feel it's going a bit fast. Prajalpa Niyama Graha Jana Sangha. Jana Sangha means association of the worldly minded people. Person should be very, very careful, especially devotees should be very careful in getting into this. And this is again a quote by Srila Prabhupada, and this picture shown on the right is totally my concoction to explain this point based on Srila Prabhupada's purport. Sorry for the background noise. Any devotee would like to, Rohini Mataji wanted to share something?
No, Prabhu.
Okay, fine. Reena Mataji, you can unmute and read through.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Jana Sangha, one should always engage in the service of the Lord, in the association of the Lord's devotees. Association with those engaged in a similar line of business is very conducive to advancement in that business. Consequently, materialistic persons form various associations and clubs to enhance their endeavors. For example, in the business world, we find such institutions as the Stock Exchange and the Chamber of Commerce. Similarly, we have established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to give people an opportunity to associate with those who have not forgotten Krishna. NOI.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, if we want to pursue a particular goal, it is important we associate with people who are like-minded, who also share that goal with us. And he gives the example, just like the business world, we have various stock exchanges, we have various clubs, chamber of commerce, and so on and so forth. Similarly, even for devotees, we have to be together with personalities who have similar goals in their life. If we stay close heart to heart with the persons whose goals are worldly enjoyment, invariably it will take away our own desire to serve Lord Krishna. So we have to be very, very careful about this particular point of avoiding Jana Sangha. And the picture shown on the right are some of the clubs which are quite famous, and we don't want to be critical of any particular club, but what they stand for is just the social interaction, which doesn't involve any advancement in one's spiritual life. Then till now we saw what is to be avoided. We have to avoid Prajalpa, Niyamagraha, Janasanga, and last is Laulyam, which is too much greed, Atyahar and Prayas. All these things are the don'ts, what we need to avoid. Then what the devotee should be engaged in. What does it mean by lazy intelligence? Where should we focus our energy? That is mentioned in the next verse, which is text 3. So maybe we just recite that text once more. Any devotee would like to recite text 3 again? Very quickly. All right. So I will recite. Utsaha nishchaya dhairya tattat karma pravartanat sangatyagat sato vratte shadbhir bhakti prasidhyati. So these 6 activities are now mentioned, which are the do's, which are the activities that are conducive for one's advancement in Krishna consciousness. And these principles we saw a while ago when we started. Utsahan, which means being enthusiastic. Nishchayat, that means endeavoring with confidence. Dhairyat, endeavoring with patience. That means one is patient to achieve perfection. Tattat karma pravartanat, acting according to regulative principles such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. Sangatyagat, Sangatyagat, this is consistent with Jana Sangha, abandoning the association of non-devotees. And last one, Sato Vratte, following the footsteps of the previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure complete success in pure devotional service. So like we saw don'ts, now we go through the do's. What are the do's? So any devotee would like to read through this particular part? Lalita Narayanan Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, ma'am.
Tattat karma pravartana. As already explained, one should not be idle, but should be very enthusiastic about executing the regulative principles. Tattat karma pravartana. Neglect of the regulative principles will destroy devotional service. In this Krishna consciousness movement, there are 4 basic regulative principles: forbidding illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. A devotee must be very enthusiastic about following these principles. If he becomes slack in following any of them, his progress will certainly be checked. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore recommends Tattat Karma Pravartanat. One must strictly follow the regulative principles of Vaidhi Bhakti. In addition to these 4 prohibitions, that is Yama, there are positive regulative principles, that is Niyama, such as the daily chanting of 16 rounds on Japamala beads. These regulative activities must be faithfully performed with enthusiasm.
Thank you, Lalita. So here the do's of the devotional service are given, which includes following the regulative principles, and most important, Srila Prabhupada mentions chanting of the quota of rounds that we have got from our spiritual master, minimum 16 rounds. And one devotee had mentioned a while ago as a lazy intelligent example of Srila Madhavendra Puri. So the picture shown on the right is of the same pastime of Srila Madhavendra Puri excavating, basically getting the deity of Gopalji, which today stands as Sri Gopal in Nathadwara in Rajasthan. So that deity was originally discovered by Srila Madhavendra Puri when Gopalji himself came in his dream. So, and establishing a very nice, pompous, gorgeous worship of Gopalji deity on top of Govardhan hill. So we see that these devotees, they are very, very enthusiastic as far as serving Krishna is concerned. And this enthusiasm, Srila Prabhupada explains in this purport, means following the regulatory principles and following the order of chanting 16 rounds. Utsahan. Utsahan means endeavoring with great, endeavor executed with intelligence in Krishna consciousness is called Utsaha or enthusiasm. And here we see on the right hand side, the example we have shown is of devotees enthusiastically participating in Harinam in one of the places in Western countries. And let me tell you, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, to follow Krishna as we have some of the devotees participating in Western countries like Murli Prabhu and even Anita Goyal Mataji. It's not easy to practice Krishna consciousness there. Why? Because Maya is so strong that devotees are literally flowing against the current. Of course, it is not that it isn't the case in India, but at least we have some residual of the Vedic culture still remaining. So following in the Western countries, which are like mini heaven, you can say, where the sense gratification is available so much in ample, one must be very, very enthusiastic. Otherwise, the fire of Krishna consciousness will subsequently subside. And Srila Prabhupada writes the last part of this purport: the execution of devotional service is not a matter of idle meditation, but practical action in the foreground of spiritual life. That means a devotee, he doesn't want to just sit and in one corner and meditate on Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada taught bhakti as devotional service, as active engagement in service to Lord Krishna. So one should be very enthusiastic to render this service and not try to perfect his own life by quiet meditation. Okay, so we will go bit fast. Let me know if any of things are not being covered properly. Yes, so now we have the last part of our discussion today. So there are few other do's that are mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami, for which I have not put a separate slides, but maybe we cover them just through discussion. Utsahat Nishchayat Dhairyat. Nishchayat means endeavoring with confidence, and Dhairyat means patience. So any example from Srila Prabhupada's books anybody can think of endeavoring with confidence and patience? Any example? Before we proceed to the group discussion activity, which will be the last activity today.
Hare Krishna, will Prahalad Maharaj come under that, Prabhuji?
Just explain a bit, Sujata Mataji.
Because he was very patient, no? Because he was not whatever his father did. He was fixed in his Krishna consciousness. I thought his confidence was there. But,
he was so patient and confident. I completely agree. In fact, it takes such guts, it takes such fearlessness for a small 5-year-old child standing in front of the topmost of the asuras and trying to preach him Krishna consciousness. It wasn't easy. But Prahlad Maharaj stood his ground and he was very patient. And even at the risk to his own life, he wanted to give Krishna consciousness to his father. Thank you, Mataji. Shama Gopika Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I remember the Haridas Thakur when he was like beaten up in the marketplaces. He was still chanting, chanting the name of Krishna, even though he was like badly beaten and he was at the verge of, death bed like that.
Yes. So even like this needs having that much faith and confidence in the process of devotional service, and having the conviction that there is a very nice verse by Srila Haridas Thakur in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So I don't recollect the exact verse in Bengali, but the English meaning is, he mentioned to the soldiers and to the king that even if you break my body down, even if you cut my body down into thousands of pieces, each and every piece, each and every khanda of my body will still continue to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So that was the faith and enthusiasm and confidence of Srila Haridas Thakur. Any specific example anyone recollects also from Chaitanya Charitamrita about patience? About a devotee showing exemplary patience. So as the coincidence would have, almost 3 devotees on the chat, and they have pinged me one to one, have quoted the same example of Srila Prabhupada. So let's take this example in bit more detail. So Rohini Mataji, Reena Mataji and Santosh Prabhu have all quoted the example of Srila Prabhupada. Attendance link we'll share shortly, Prabhuji. I have already pinged Mataji, so we'll share shortly. So Srila Prabhupada, if we see, he was so patient that when he went to West, firstly, not at all any support he had. Secondly, he had with him the return ticket of Jaladuta. So if Prabhupada would have wanted, anytime he had the chance, and he mentions in the Lilamrut, we find the mention by Prabhupada that few times he did consider whether we should go back, but then he recollected his spiritual master's instruction, and he became determined that even if I have to die without success, I would still prefer to die in here, trying to fulfill the order of my spiritual master rather than leaving the battlefield and going back to Vrindavan. And in fact, in one of the classes, recent classes, I was reading the transcription. Srila Prabhupada mentions to the participants, he says that, so you know Krishna and nobody is aware of Krishna. Do you know Vrindavan? He says nobody is aware. Then he understands the gravity of the situation, how much he needs to explain them from the scratch. And then he explains about Krishna, says that he comes from Vrindavan, which is near Delhi in modern day India. And Srila Prabhupada mentions, but I do miss Vrindavan. He gets very emotional. And he says, and I'm not at all much happy here, having come so far from Vrindavan. And then one of the lady participants, she mentions that, yes, Swamiji, we can see that you are not very happy coming all the way away from your cherished place of Vrindavan. And but Srila Prabhupada then counter answers her. He says, but I will not go back. I will continue to stay here and try to serve the mission that my spiritual master has given me. So that is also an example of a endeavoring with confidence and patience, that although he had that much taste for Vrindavan and the situations were not at all encouraging for him to spread Krishna consciousness, hardly any material help, and the initial classes which Srila Prabhupada held in Dr. Mishra's yoga studio, not even youngsters were coming. Only later on, when Srila Prabhupada, with the help of Mukunda Maharaj, got 22nd Avenue, that the youngsters started coming. So initial set of people who were coming were all the elderly people who were coming to the yoga studio, who were not at all interested in molding their lives. But Srila Prabhupada still didn't give up. He was very determined to even give them Krishna consciousness. He didn't say, what is the use of preaching to these people, because they won't be asset to the moment. He continued to preach. Lalita Mataji has mentioned, Prabhupada had given example of a girl. Yes. So that is the example he quotes in Nectar of Instruction of a girl aspiring to have a child after marriage. She needs to patiently serve the husband, and subsequently the child she will beget. And Reena Mataji has mentioned the example of Nityananda Prabhu being very, very patient in pursuing with Jagai and Madai to give them Krishna consciousness. Although they were totally sinful, not at all receptive of Krishna consciousness, and even abusive and offensive towards Lord Nityananda Prabhu, he did not mind his own safety to give them Krishna. So these are some of the examples we saw of Utsahat, Nishchayat, Dhairyat. Any other comment or any other example any devotee would like to share? Hare Krishna. All right. So Utsaha.
Prabhuji,
Yes, yes. Prabhu.
the Prataprudra, so who was the king of Orissa? Can we give the example here, Prabhu? So because though he was a king, yeah, he had a lot of patience, and then he waited for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you like to explain, Ramesh Prabhu, how he waited for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy?
Because initially he wanted to meet him, so, but so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refused, saying that say he'll not meet with the kings, because he was a sannyasi. And then I think say he came as a normal devotee, and then say he did some service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then things evolved. So.
Right. So even before Prataprudra Maharaj came in the form of a simple mendicant to menially serve Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, first instance where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy was really attracted by Prataprudra Maharaj was his humble service in sweeping the street in front of the Ratha cart of Lord Jagannath as a king. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took note that this person, although a king, he is such menially serving Lord Jagannath. And secondly, he also arranged for the devotees to have nice facilities to stay, attend Rath Yatra festival, have prasadam and everything. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also took note of that. And then it culminated in Prataprudra Maharaj coming to Jagannath Vallabh garden to in the garb of a normal mendicant, serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by massaging his lotus feet and then singing Gopi Git. Thank you, Ramesh Prabhuji. Tattat karma pravartanat we saw, sangatyagat we saw, sato vratte. Sato vratte means following the footsteps of the predecessor acharyas. So especially we have the 12 Mahajanas and as well as our own acharyas in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya and other Vaishnava Sampradayas whose footsteps we are required to follow. So any examples can we think of from our day-to-day life of how we are mindful of the mood and mission of the predecessor Acharya, especially Srila Prabhupada, and try to follow his footsteps? Any example? Right. One example I would quote that one of the things which is forbidden, which is not allowed in Kali Yuga, is acceptance of the sannyasa order. And because people are so fallen and degraded that the chances of fall down are very, very high. But we see following the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada, who himself followed the footstep of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, devotees are willing to take these risks just for the upliftment of the fallen souls. And we have so many sannyasis in our movement. So we have to understand what a great risk they are taking, where each and every moment, each and every place practically in Kali Yuga is contaminated with so many karmic vibrations of Maya, especially in the Western countries. But devotees are taking the risk following the predecessor Acharya, specifically Srila Prabhupada. Lalita Mataji has mentioned, rising early to attend Mangalarti should be enthusiastically done. When it comes under Utsahat, laziness will not work. Thank you, Mataji. All right. So any Shadbir Bhakti Prasiddhyati. So these 6 activities are favorable, conducive to advancement in devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada mentions a statement later on. Let me just read out this statement. You remember, all of you remember, there is a famous statement from preface that we had pointed. What was that statement? Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on attitude of the follower. Thank you, Shama Gopika Mataji, Ramesh Prabhu. Similarly, there is a famous quote by Srila Prabhupada in text 3, which again, if you like, you can note it down. This is on page 41. Srila Prabhupada writes, devotional service is so pure and perfect that once having begun, one is forcibly dragged to ultimate success. That means once a person starts Krishna consciousness, even if he has some demerits, even if he has got some drawbacks, one will ultimately be dragged by the process itself to ultimate perfection. He simply has to remain in the process as in the group of devotees. So this is again a very famous quote by Srila Prabhupada. And you will find these quoted across various classes, some of the famous quotes from Nectar of Instruction. This is page 41. So now we go to the last part of today's discussion, which is a group activity where we will go into breakout rooms because we want to do full justice to this. Discuss in the breakout rooms 2 points from these text 2 and 3, from the do's and don'ts, 6 don'ts, 6 do's. What any specific point we can take home as part of our own practice, which we can apply for our advancement. And we will have one devotee representative from each group and probably share the topmost 2 points that they discussed. Okay, but we request all the devotee participants to, even if those points are repeated, don't worry, it's not about being unique, but what is our take home points from this discussion, do's and don'ts. Let me put this on the chat. So take around 5 minutes to discuss, and then we will have each group sharing their findings.
Prabhuji, today there will be another sloka recitation test after the class.
Yes, Prabhuji, after this. Yes. For the remaining devotees, okay. We'll see how many we can cover, but this is important, so don't shorten this. Let me make the breakout rooms. Any question from any devotees on this activity? We request all the devotees to participate in this. We don't want 1 or 2 devotees alone to participate. Everybody should take at least 2 points what we can take home to advance in Krishna consciousness from these verses. So let me make breakout rooms. So we will make 5 breakout rooms just ease of time. Okay. Shama Gopika Mataji, you have any question?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
2 points from each text, is it?
2 points overall from both these texts. Okay. If you have more, that is also fine. But as far as group presentation is concerned, we would request one devotee from the group to present only top 2 points. Okay. So please don't mind if your point is not mentioned. It is still important. It is just that in the interest of time, we may not be able to cover all.
Sure.
Okay. Hare Krishna. So take around 5 minutes to discuss. Right now it is 2:13 here, which means it is 11:43 India time. Am I correct? Yeah, 11:43 India time. So take around 5 to 6 minutes to discuss, and then we come back. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, we are back.
Hare Krishna Mataji. All right.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we are back.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna Prabhuji.
All right. So
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
before we start taking devotee representatives from each group, I have shared the attendance link. Okay. So at your availability, you can mark it. So we start with group 1. Who will be the devotee to represent group 1?
Who are the participants, Prabhuji, in the group 1?
Divya Rukmini Mataji, Anita Goel Mataji, Guru Nishtha Mataji, Ramesh Prabhu, Rohini Mataji, Rupali Rana Mataji, and Vilas Vispote Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Vilas Prabhuji, yes Prabhuji, 1 second, let me.
In our group, we discussed actually, first of all, Utsaha and Nischaya. So for that, our sadhana should be very strong. We should never forget Krishna and always remember Krishna. And another, we should we should take only prasadam. We should avoid the overeating, and for the prasadam only we should take. And another thing, we should avoid the non-devotee association, and particularly social media, only which is related to the for spreading the Krishna consciousness. Only we should use the social media platform, and maximum time we should read the books, particularly Srila Prabhupada's books. So that and one more important point, we should always follow the strictly this Vaishnava attires, like we should not avoid, or we should not feel shame for the applying tilak and dhoti, etc. while going for the devotees association or particularly temple.
Yes. Thank you, Vilas Prabhu. Vaishnava. So total 4 points I have noted down. I'll share this list later. Okay. Strong sadhana, taking only prasadam, avoid overeating. This is the second one. Third is avoid non-devotee association and be very judicious, careful in using social media only to the extent required for Krishna's service. And fourth is follow Vaishnav attire. Thank you, Vilas Prabhuji. So now, and all the devotees in group 1. For breakout room 2, who will be the devotees?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The breakout room 2 devotees are Lalita Narayanan Mataji, Tharni Mataji, Pradosh Prabhu, Murti Prabhu, and team, Dr. Indra Mataji. And I'm sorry, forgot a couple of names. So I'll summarize for them. Sure. Hare Krishna Prabhu. So basically, I will take the concept of devotee association. Right. So in the second mantra. So what they are talking about is, I will take an example and explain, wherein Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Nectar of Devotion, which you had taught us last time, wherein, it's better to associate only with devotees, and instead, if you do not have a chance to associate with devotees, it's equal. It's if you're given a choice, we can even stay within the iron rods, or we can associate even with animals like snakes or crocodiles, which are far better than non-devotees or materialists. So I think that is a classic example to justify, because this has come from the words of the Lord. Now, we may also, in contrary, tell that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said this, whereas Prabhupada had crossed the 7 worlds and had actually 7 seas and had associated with hippies. But such an association can be done only by a very pure devotee to remove fallen souls, just like Haridas Thakur. Whereas if people like us get associated, forget about associating with devotee hippies. Even if a hippie is in our compartment, we will try and change. Change not the person, but change our location. Right? So we are that corrupt that the chance of us getting influenced is very high. Which is why in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is advising Arjuna, do not try renunciation, because if you're trying to run away, even if you are successful, people who follow you, yatyad acharati sheshas, they will actually confuse and they will follow and they will fail. So clearly, we have to be in association. This is one point which was brought up by the team, and I just thought I will add examples to make it clear. And second thing is Prajalpa is like, we do not know who is a devotee today, and Prajalpa is so serious because
this is the only biggest aparad, right? Vaishnava aparad. And by doing Prajalpa, besides we killing the time which was dedicated for Krishna, we are also trying to do a self-destruction, because by doing aparad, there is nothing which can actually fix the mistake. So it will actually, like how an elephant has taken bath and comes and throws mud on itself, or a mad elephant entering a garden, this will completely destroy our devotional service. So I just thought I will bring 2 points with examples, Prabhu, and leave the rest to the rest of them. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Thank you, Radhika Mataji, and all the devotees in group 2. So now we move to breakout room 3. Who will be the devotees representing breakout room 3?
Hare
Hare Krishna Shama Gopika Mataji. 1 second. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, we discussed about few points, Prabhuji. So first thing is like over endeavoring for money and material things. So nowadays it became like it became customary that you need to earn a lot of money, you need to have a particular status in the society, and because of the social media also, like we tend to present in front of others that we are very rich or something. So we should not over endeavor for money and material things. And also second important point is Prajalpa. So spending more time on social media and talking about unnecessary things, so we should avoid them. And we should talk about Krishna, like we should give positive association to others. And also like we need to keep spiritual life, like we need to take out time from our daily routine to cultivate Krishna consciousness in the family also. Like we should have a particular time to sit with everyone and read out some verses and read from Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, like that. And we should not keep ourselves idle, like keep ourselves busy in like reading Prabhupada books or doing service. So that is one, Prabhu. And also the association. So association of devotees, this is a very important point. Like Prabhupada has given us such a nice facility to associate with devotees, and we need to take advantage of this. If we remain in the like Prabhupada always gives an example that if we remain in association of a drunkard, we'll become drunkard. So if we remain in the association of devotees, we'll become devotees. And this will increase our enthusiasm also to serve Krishna. And also like for niyamas, we discussed that we should understand the niyamas, because without knowing what it really means, it might happen that we won't follow that. So it becomes important for us to understand and follow niyamas.
Thank you, Shama Gopika Mataji.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Krishna.
And all the devotees in breakout room 3. And next we have breakout room 4 group of devotees: Chaitanya Katha Prabhu, Ratna Mataji, Mangala Mataji, Murli Kari Prabhu, Priyadarshini Mataji, Surekha Mataji, Vallar Mataji. Hare Krishna. Who will be the devotee representing this group? Prakash Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Will you be representing?
I am in the next group.
Sorry,
Prabhuji.
next group. Okay, sorry. Group 4, any devotee representative?
Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji. Actually, we had a very nice discussion. I thought Vallar Mataji or Murli Prabhu were present, but okay, fine, Prabhuji. Okay. These are all, we face day in and day out. Now, the first one, eating more and actually collecting more funds, I was reminded of the hoarding attitude that people have when there is a time of distress, maybe war times or epidemic times, whatever, when there's a scarcity of some material, the tendency of the humans, not animals, is to keep on hoarding things. I think this should be absolutely rejected. See, we have, supposing you are able to lay hands upon the commodity before the others, it's better rather than hoarding that, you give it to distribute it to the others, because it may get sold out or out of stock, and you are the lucky one having more of it. You should distribute. There's no point in keeping it in a storehouse and spoiling it, thinking of anticipating the future need. That's very bad. And then about entering over the mundane things, So what we do is normally we forget that we have to limit ourselves to our requirements and know our limitations. One thing that happens here, which is very natural, is we go on comparing, most of us, with the others, with the neighbors. And if you try to reach their standards, which are very high and which are beyond your possibly your capacity, you endeavor for it unnecessarily, in spite of spending time on useful things, which are life-solving, actually, remedies for you as in the human life. And in that endeavor, you forget the whole purpose of your life and you end up in depression and with nothing on hand, actually.
Thank you.
Practicing the scriptural rules, I think we should definitely, sincerity is very important. No, let's not practice because we have to practice. If you have, from the core of the heart, you should feel the need and you have to very sincerely do it, because lots can be said. Then associating with the worldly-minded people, me and Valar Mataji had similar experiences. When we talk over the phone or when a person comes home to meet us, we feel if the person is not talking on, if he's talking on mundane platform, you feel your time is getting wasted and your energy is getting wasted. And you look forward to the time when he's going to leave you. But on the contrary, when we have group meetings where we discuss Bhagavatam and then Bhagavad Gita and other things, we feel the time is short. We discuss for more than 1.5 or 2 hours and we feel, I wish we had more time. So in short, I'm just telling you what we feel. And of course, I think I'll stop at this because many things have been. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Priyadarshini Mataji, and all the devotees in breakout room 4. So now we'll have last group of devotees from breakout room 5. Adish Prabhu, Manas Prabhu, Prakash Parekh Prabhu, Rajashri Mataji, and Reena Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Everybody discussed very well, and Adish Prabhuji is going to represent us.
Sure, Prabhuji. 1 second.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So in our group, we had a very good discussion regarding the two do's and don'ts the do's and don'ts that will take home from the discussion today. So we discussed regarding Atyahara. That is one of the devotees explained that they can control Atyahara by having only Prasadam. And then we discussed regarding Prajalpa. And then we discussed regarding Nishchaya, Dhairya, and that is patience, the Nishchaya, Dhairya. And what's the third one, Prabhuji? I'm not getting
Nishchaya, Dhairya.
Yeah, we discussed
confidence, patience, and enthusiasm.
Yeah, we discussed all those three. Yeah, Prakash Prabhuji, if you want, you can continue.
Go ahead. Utsaha was the.
Yeah, Utsaha was the enthusiasm which the devotee explained regarding getting up in the morning for the devotionals, for practicing Krishna consciousness. And then Nishchaya, that is Utsaha. Nishchaya is
in spite of being a neophytes, we still get up early in the morning at 3:30 and do our 16 rounds of japa.
Yeah, and when we discussed about Dhairya, that is having confidence and being patient. Being patient and not expecting the results immediately, like having patience and faith.
So for all these three, we had the example was getting up early in the morning and doing 16 rounds in the Brahma Muhurat.
Yes. Yeah, and we discussed that Prakash Prabhuji is a very senior orthopedic surgeon, and Manas Prabhu is a very senior ENT surgeon. They are giving they're taking away they're making time out of their busy schedule to do Krishna, to practice Krishna consciousness, and also to join with to join for the classes, and they inspire us that how we can make time for ourselves even when the schedule is busy.
Yes. Thank you so much, Adish Prabhu, Prakash Prabhu, and all the devotees in breakout room 5. Okay. So with this, we would conclude our discussion on text 2 and text 3 of NOI, Nectar of